Welcome to the Virginia Virtual Farm to Table program. My name is Dylan Chapins and I'm the 4-H agent in Frederick County. The purpose of the Virginia Virtual Farm to Table program is to highlight Virginia grown produce and livestock that are raised on farms across the Commonwealth and demonstrate how to create a delicious and nutritious meal with a highlighted ingredient. This educational program will highlight Virginia agriculture, community nutrition, and farm-to-table connections, and is brought to you by Virginia Cooperative Extension, an educational outreach program of Virginia's land-grant universities, Virginia Tech, and Virginia State University. Virginia Cooperative Extension's educational programs are delivered through a network of faculty at these two universities, 108 county and city offices, 11 agriculture, research, and extension centers, and 6 4-H educational centers. I encourage all of you to participate in your local Virginia Cooperative Extension programs to learn more if you have not already. Today, we will be focusing on turkey. Carrie Spinagle, 4-H Extension Agent in Bath and Highland Counties, will be teaching us about how turkeys are raised and prepared for harvest at Hollow Hill Farm in Highland County. Next, Cynthia Martell, Dairy Science Extension Agent in Franklin County, will teach us about wild turkey. Then, Darla Marks, 4-H Extension Agent in Charlotte County, will share a delicious turkey-inspired recipe. And finally, Zachary King will talk to us. He's a sales rep from Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative. Mary Beth Martin, 4-H agent in Bedford County, will be our Q&A monitor for today. If you have any questions that you would like the presenters to answer, please type them into the Q&A box, and we will try to address as many of those as possible. Please note there's also a chat box, but that may not be monitored, so please make sure that you use the Q&A box for questions that you would like to be answered.
Okay, you ready for me, Dylan?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Well, this is Carrie Spinagle. Glad everybody could come along today. So what I'm going to show you around is the family farm, and this is going to be turkey production at Hollow Hill Farm. I would like to note that Hollow Hill Farm is owned and operated by James and Harry Spinagle. Those are my husband's father and uncle. And so on behalf of them, I hope I will do their farm justice with today's short presentation. Next slide. Okay, so some poultry stats for Virginia as a whole. You can just see this cute little infographic that I took today. There are more than 1,100 family-owned farms in Virginia that are raising poultry. And poultry, by definition, is chickens and turkeys, and it also includes eggs sometimes. So when we say Virginia poultry, that kind of encompasses everything as a whole on the production side. We'll dive a little further into turkeys, particularly today. And actually, the picture of the turkey there, that is one that was raised on our farm. It might look like he's got little flecks of dirt on his feathers, but he's actually tipped with black. So his feathers are actually black tipped. So he's not all the way white. So I wanted to share that little photo with you guys that about that particular turkey in this picture. Next. Okay, so if we want to talk turkey, turkey is ranked number 4 in the top 20 in ag products in Virginia, and that's according to USDA as of 2017. We are also in the top 5 states nationally in production. In 2019, according to our ag statistics, we had 16 million turkeys produced in Virginia. And another fun fact about turkeys in general is Rockingham County is considered the turkey capital of the world. And on the right-hand side of the slide there is a little infographic from harrisonburg.org in regards to how poultry was started in the Shenandoah Valley with Mr. Charles Wampler. And so that's a really fun historical site to go to get a little more facts about how poultry production started here. Next. All right, so what does a modern day turkey farm look like? I'm gonna take you through some pictures, and I also have a short video for you to watch us walk through the turkeys, so to speak, as part of our farm tour. So this is what turkey production looks like at Hollow Hill Farm. Next. Okay, so on our farm, we actually have two sections of turkey houses. We have an older set, which is called a 3-stage. It involves 3 particular buildings. So that's the top picture with the arrows. The first building you see is the starter house. That is where our baby turkeys come to kind of start their life. And then behind it, on down the road with the orange arrow, are the intermediate and finisher houses. The intermediate and finisher houses are actually one building with a partition in the middle, so there's space between the different age turkeys. So that's our 3-stage operation, which we consider down the hill, down the road. Up the hill, up the road, we have a 2-stage operation, and that is the bottom picture. In that, we have single buildings that are split into 2 pieces, a starter and a finisher end. So those are what the actual buildings that we keep our turkeys in look like at Holly Hill Farm. Next. So on the outside, an average turkey barn is either 50 foot by 500. It can be a little wider, it can be a little shorter. And so I had a statistic on here earlier that said a football field is 160 by 360. So they're not quite as big as a football field in area, but you can kind of have some visual as to how long these buildings actually are. The starter houses usually have concrete floors because we have babies in there, and on top of the concrete we add shavings, and they're also a little more heavily insulated because baby turkeys need to be kept warmer while they're growing. Side curtains, as you can see in this picture, there's a side curtain that goes all the way up the side of the building. It's actually partitioned into 2 pieces, so there's a curtain for the starter end and a curtain for the finishing end. This helps with ventilation, so the turkeys have plenty of fresh air while they need it, especially in the summertime, and they actually go up and down based on a computer-driven pulley system, so it's really cool. Feed is kept in the bins, as you can see in the far right of the picture, and so the feed is taken in by auger and fed down through a feeding pan system inside the house. The indoors that you see on the turkey houses are for equipment access, so when we have to do a clean out or when we're brought shavings or whatnot, if we need to make repairs, the big doors on the end allow us to do that. People are always entering the side doors, particularly you enter the building in the middle where the partition is between both types of birds, between the starter and the finisher end, so you can sanitize before entering the actual birds. So we don't usually walk straight into the house with the birds. While they're in there, we usually enter what's called an Nanny Room, where we can sanitize, wash our boots, and then enter the appropriate side of the turkey house to check turkeys. So inside that Nanny Room, technically in the middle, we can store chemicals if we need them. We can store medicine, equipment. The computer system is in there, usually in a cleaner space, along with some of our records that we need to keep for the turkeys. Next. So for our particular houses up on the hill, as we say at the farm, they have tunnel ventilation. So on the very end, or the back end of the house, there are fans, and they're rather large, and what they do, they don't blow air into the house, they pull it through. So they actually blow out from the turkey house, and so with the curtains on the side of the house, they lower, they go up and they go down to make sure the airflow is adequate while the fans are working, so that it pulls through the house versus blowing into the house. Creates static pressure, so if you're inside and the fans are on, it might actually pull your door shut for you. But that actually helps keep the air a whole lot cleaner. It helps it flow. There's not a breeze in the house, so you can't feel the air move too much, but there's just constant access for the turkeys for new air being pulled into the house and the older air coming out through the fans. Next. Okay, so before we go inside, I had my son help me with some demos. I took some pictures of him. Bird safety is first. As we all know, food security and biosecurity is a big deal. If you know anything about chickens and poultry and turkeys, we need to be careful to make sure we're not spreading disease from anywhere else on our farm to our birds, because if we don't have healthy birds, they won't live to sale day and we can't get them to the co-op. So before we go inside, we have to be wearing clean turkey house only clothes, and that can include rubber non-tread boots, because treaded boots can keep residue and dirt in those treads. So we want non-tread boots that we kind of slip over our farm shoes, or a whole set of clothes that's just for turkeys. We wash in and we wash out, so we make sure we scrub our boots really good before we enter the building. In that pan there is disinfectant. It is constantly changed to make sure it's fresh and it is working. We always check birds youngest to oldest to prevent disease sharing from older birds to younger birds. So if we, at any point in time on the farm, we could have 3 different ages of birds. We always start with youngest to oldest, or if there's more than one person checking turkeys, we'll have a young bird person and we'll have an older bird person. So, and we always check at least morning and evening, and sometimes we check a little extra depending on the health of the turkeys. Next. So while we're inside, this is called checking turkeys. So when we sit down after supper or in the morning before we get up, we always ask who's going to go check turkeys. So while we're checking turkeys, we need to check for water leaks and floods inside. The feed pans and the irrigation system are kind of the same. They're a big long running system throughout the house. So we always need to make sure that there's nothing leaking, there's nothing spilling out. We always check the feed line for feed spills or a pan out of place. We also want to make sure the birds aren't stuck in them or anything. They're designed so that the birds can have free access to water and food all the time, and they're usually out of plastic, so they're pretty safe for all the birds to be around, and they don't usually have any trouble accessing food or water through those systems. We want to make sure all the birds are healthy. Sometimes we find the occasional dead bird, it just happens. So if we find a dead bird, we need to remove it immediately so we can prevent anything from that carcass going to our healthy live birds. We also need to listen. If you've ever been into or close to a turkey house, you know they make some noise. They kind of cackle and gobble and things, which is kind of fun. But if you have checked turkeys for a decent amount of time, you start to hear things like healthy birds sound different from sick birds. And so that's something we have to make sure we're paying attention to. We're going to walk slowly and quietly. That's something, especially when I have little helpers with me, we need to be reminded of, because turkeys scare just as easily as other animals, but they do get used to you after they see you twice a day for 18 weeks, they do get used to you, and they're very docile after they start getting used to you being in the house. So you want to report and record your findings on like a clipboard or whatever kind of record keeping your turkey house has. How many dead birds you might have found, if you had to make an adjustment to a waterer or you had to adjust a feed pan. That's something you want to write down so you have those notes for later. Next. So a little bit more about our particular farm. So we are an all-in type farm. We get birds at 1 day old and they stay with us until they're 18 to 20 weeks old when they go to harvest. There are some farms that only do the starter part of growth, which means they get day-old poults, and then they only have them 6 or 8 weeks, and then they go to another farm. But we have all our birds from start to finish. So they're hatched at a hatchery, they're brought to us in an incubated truck, and we immediately transfer them to the starter house where they decide where they grow. And then we move them from different sections of the houses as they get bigger and for all the adequate space per bird. Next. Here's just another picture inside a turkey house. This is me checking some, I want to say adolescent turkeys. They're not young, but they're not mature. So that's kind of what they look like. Everything's well lit. It's well ventilated. They all have adequate space. And these turkeys were actually rather happy and healthy, and they helped me out with my photo op. So next. All right, so we're going to walk through the turkeys now. We have a short little 1-minute video. I hope you enjoy that. And then we'll hear later on in the presentation from Mr. Zachary King. He is from Virginia Poultry Growers Co-op in the sales department, and he will be telling us about what happens to birds after. All right, thank you.
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Cynthia Martell, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about wild turkeys. So we're going to go over some fun facts about the wild turkeys in Virginia. Of course, we always like to say, what came first, the egg or the turkey? Male turkeys are called toms. Top right, the top picture you can see is some toms. Female turkeys are called the hens. When we ask what came first, the turkey or the egg, you've got to remember that mating takes place in late March to early April for wild turkeys, with eggs being laid in mid-April to the first week in May. It's a 28-day hatching, so usually what you'll see is baby turkeys being born the first week in June. If during that time period, if eggs are damaged early enough in the process, a second mating can occur, so we have more eggs. And it just went to your whole screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back. Sorry.
You're fine. You can go to the next screen.
Okay.
So when we're dealing and talking about wild turkeys, of course, we're not looking at what we're not feeding them. So they have to go forage for themselves. Most times, turkeys will go and eat acorns. And the reason why they do this is they're going to pick them based on size and shape. And it's because turkeys actually have a poor sense of smell, but they have amazing eyesight. And acorns actually play a big part in how many turkeys are going to be harvested during hunting season. And it's because if there's a good crop of acorns that are being hidden in the woods, you're going to see less birds come out into open fields looking for food. So that has a time and affects how many turkeys are usually harvested during the hunting season. Next. So a tom versus a jake and the hen. When hunters are going out to hunt, they're looking for the tom. Sometimes some of them may harvest some jakes, but most cases they're looking for a tom, which is the big, bright, showy guy that likes to show off for all the ladies. So I like to say who wears it best. Males, the toms, whether they're the mature bird, or the jakes are your juveniles, they grow a beard throughout their life, gaining about 4 inches annually. And this is a good way that you can tell how old your birds are when you're watching them or when you're harvesting them during hunting. Hens, though, can also have beards on rare occasions and have some spurs. The spurs are what, as my husband is a hunter, he likes to look for the birds with the big beards and the big spurs. The spurs also grow throughout the life of the bird, and that's another way that you can estimate their age. And those are a kind of like a fingernail. It has a keratin type material at the top, and it's a bony core, and they're seen on the legs of the tom. And as the jake gets older, they'll start to grow. Next. So a little bit about history of the Virginia wild turkey. Early settlers in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century depended on wild game meat year-round. During the 20th century and the first arrival of settlers in Jamestown, that is what changed the landscape of the wild turkey. So because of this change, it led to the disappearance of 2/3 of Virginia's wild turkeys. From there on, they started noticing the decrease in the birds, and they knew they had to make a change. So in 1912, the passage of the Robin Bill in Virginia, which prohibited the sale on the open market of wild turkeys and other species of birds. So because they noticed this decrease, they then created the game department, and that led to restricting hunting methods and bag limits of wild turkeys in Virginia. Next. This map is showing you the wild turkey population, and it's a few years old, between 2016 and 2017, where Virginia has approximately 180,000 birds, wild turkey birds in the state, with the highest populations found in the Tidewater, South Mountain, and the southern Piedmont regions. And if you look at the map, you can see where the highest population and density is. So I thought it'd be cool for everybody to see a quick processing of wild turkey for me. This is what I do with my husband, and actually last year, I processed 3 wild birds myself because of my neighbor. He likes to hunt, but he doesn't like turkey meat to eat, so he hunts them, we process them. So some things you're going to need if you're going to think about processing wild turkey for meat: a clean table, rubber gloves, bowl, and a really sharp knife. We process our animals outside, and then we bring them into our house to finish them off. This is just a few of the steps that we're going to talk about in the video that we can start playing now. So the first thing that needs to be done is you need to cut a small incision along the breastbone of the bird. This is going to allow you to open it up and create a pocket. Here you can see the skin is being removed from the chest and the breast meat of the bird, and you can easily just pull the skin off of the breast meat and move it away from the breast meat which you're going to harvest. In this case, we only took the breast meat out of this turkey. It ranged about, I think this bird was 23 pounds. It was killed that morning, and we removed the breast meat within a half an hour or less after it was killed, and we were able to do that in less than 3 minutes. So after the skin is pulled back and removed from the breast meat, you can kind of open it up, and then you're going to grab a sharp knife and you're going to start cutting the breast meat off. The easiest way to do that is to find the breastbone on the turkey, and you're going to cut along the side of the breastbone with a sharp knife. And while you're doing this, you're going to be very careful not to puncture or cut too deeply to open up the chest cavity of the bird where the internal organs are. As you can see, you can easily fillet the breast meat back on one side, and then you can go and do it on the other side of the breastbone. And once you have one portion of the breast meat off, you just take it off, put it in a clean bowl, cut your second piece off, put that in a clean bowl, and we take it into our house and finish cleaning it up from there. And we'll just let the video go for a few seconds longer. And just like that, we can remove one of the breast meat within just a few minutes off the bird. And you can go to the next slide. So these are just the steps that we used. If you have any more information about wild turkey hunting in Virginia, I would encourage you to visit the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fishery website to find out more information about wild turkey and hunting in Virginia.
Good morning.
You can go ahead and play the video if you want, Lena, and then I can talk the recipes afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.
Good morning. I'm Darla Marks. I'm the Charlotte County 4-H agent, and I'm going to show you a couple of turkey recipes today. I was planning to do a turkey breast recipe because that's what Cynthia was talking about, but our area right now, turkey breast is not readily available. So we're gonna do ground turkey tacos, and then I'll show you how to use the leftovers from your tacos to make a quick and easy stir fry. All righty, to start off our tacos, we're gonna put our spices together. The one thing about this is you can make it as spicy or as mild as you want. So the chili powder is your first, and it's going to call for 1.5 tablespoons. You'll see I'm only putting a tablespoon in because I don't like mine quite as spicy as some folks. We want 2 teaspoons of cumin. Followed by a teaspoon of ground paprika. This is another one that you may or may not want to put that much in. It could be a little bit spicy. A teaspoon of salt. I tend to not put as much salt in a recipe as it calls for, but that's just me. A 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, and dried oregano. And then we're going to finish that off with a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, which you're going to notice that I put about a 1/2 of that in, because again, I don't really like it that spicy. So we're going to mix this up a little bit and we'll set it aside, and then we'll move over to the stove and start the turkey. All right, we're going to cook our turkey on medium heat, and I have 1.5 pounds of turkey. You can use more turkey if you have a larger family, less turkey. Just change it however you need to. And I have, obviously, some hot oil in that pan. I'm just going to break this up and let it cook down a little bit. Once this gets to that point that it's not quite so pink and starting to look a little more like what we want our taco meat to look like, we'll add the seasoning. Now that our meat's starting to look like it's cooking, we're going to add the spice flavorings. Stir that in, and then we're going to let it cook the rest of the way. And we'll add a little bit of sauce at the very end. It's starting to smell like tacos. Okay, so it's looking really good and ready for some sauce. We're going to add some vinegar. You can use cider vinegar, or you can use balsamic, or whatever your favorite vinegar is. And I'm going to put a tablespoon of vinegar in here. And I'm going to follow that with 1.5 teaspoons of brown sugar. And then we're going to mix that up, and we're going to let it cook down for a couple of minutes, just so that that liquid gets kind of pretty much absorbed. And then we'll make some tacos. Okay, so now we have all of our ingredients. I've chopped up some onions and some tomatoes and some lettuce. We added some sour cream and some cheese, some mushrooms. You can put your taco together any way you want to. We are using street tacos today because I happen to really think they're cool. But you can do a hard taco, you can do a regular corn taco or a soft flour tortilla, whatever you normally make these in. You can actually even put this over like a baked potato or over pasta, or if you just want to do a big taco salad, you can do that as well. So with this, we're just gonna put a taco together. So I'm gonna put some meat in here. I'm gonna add a couple of onions. Some lettuce, which isn't liking my fork, but that's okay. I'm gonna avoid the tomatoes. Some sour cream and some cheese. And there you go. All right, so we've had tacos for dinner, and now we still have leftovers. And I don't know about you, but if there's leftovers at my house, a lot of times they go into the refrigerator and they're never seen from again. Or you find them in a couple of months and you're trying to figure out what it was that was left over. So instead of doing that, let's upgrade those leftovers and make a stir fry. So we have our taco meat from yesterday. We also have tomatoes, and there was onions left over. I'm going to add broccoli and yellow squash, which is underneath the broccoli, and some bok choy to my stir fry, and the mushrooms from the tacos can go in there. So we're gonna make our sauce first. The sauce is a 1/4 cup of soy sauce, a tablespoon of oil. It can be sesame oil, it can be olive oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, whatever oil that you have on hand and you like, that's what I use. So I'm gonna use olive oil in this because I have it. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of brown sugar, which is, because there's brown sugar in the taco meat that we're using, I'm gonna put just a scant tablespoon. You can add a little more if you feel that you need it, but I'm not a real big fan of lots of sugar, so we'll add a little bit of brown sugar and leave it at that. Then I'm going to add a tablespoon of water. And I'm going to stir this up until the sugar dissolves. And then I'm going to set it aside because we'll add that at the end. But it's important to have it ready for use, so you want to do it first and then set it aside. Okay. All right, so we have our sauce made, and then we're going to start cooking some vegetables. The squash, the onions, the peppers, and the broccoli are all in here. That's going to go in to be start with. We will add the Chinese cabbage and the meat kind of back at the same time. And last, because that Chinese cabbage, we just want to wilt it down a little bit, where the rest of the vegetables we want to actually cook. So we're just going to leave this in here. It's on medium high. It's got a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan. We're going to let it cook down for about 5 to 6 minutes, and then we'll add the rest. All right, this is cooked down, and it's starting to look, our onions are starting to look a little transparent, so we're ready to add the rest of our stuff. We're going to throw in the mushrooms from yesterday and the tomatoes, which they're just kind of going to cook down and become part of the sauce probably, but that's okay. Then I'm going to add the meat back in to get it warm. Going to stir all that up a little bit. And on top of that, I'm going to add, this is actually Napa cabbage. You can use spinach, you can use bok choy, and you're just going to kind of wilt that down. And I think I'm going to stop there because my pan's full. And at this point, I'm also going to add the sauce. As soon as I mix that down in just a little bit. Then we're going to let that cook for another 3 to 5 minutes. Kind of watching that sauce, that cabbage, to let it cook down. And then I would normally serve this over some rice, but you can add the bread noodles, or you can use pasta, anything you might want to put it over. All right, the cabbage is wilted down, everything's cooked, we're ready to serve this. You can actually take it just like this to the table and serve it out of the skillet, or you can put it into a bowl. Either way, again, I would serve it with rice or with pasta or Chinese noodles. And thank you for cooking with me today. I hope you enjoyed the tacos and the stir fry. If you want to use turkey breast instead of ground turkey, if you happen to find that you have some turkey breast, you can roast it just like you would normally roast a turkey breast. I normally do mine 375 in the oven. and then pull it out, cool it down, and you can cut it up into pieces, and you can use it the exact same way, either in tacos or in the stir fry. So it doesn't have to just be ground turkey. You can use any cut of turkey basically that you can cook and then cut up. So I hope you enjoyed our presentation today.
So I included the recipes in here just so that it would be on the slides and you could find them. Again, the turkey taco meat you can use for any number of things, and you can spice it to your liking. It doesn't have to be that much of any of those spices, or you can add more depending on your taste and your family's taste. And the stir fry happens to be one of those, I do a lot of stir fry, and I really like to take those leftovers and make them into something else. We had a garden growing up, and we just kind of grabbed whatever was in the garden and threw it in there. It doesn't have to be Chinese cabbage or Napa cabbage or bok choy. You know, I use a lot of broccoli slaw because now it's just me and it's easier.
All right. Was that all you had, Darla?
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
Okay. So we also have Zachary King on this call. Zachary, do you want to introduce yourself and share any information?
Sure, that'd be great. Not sure why y'all can't see me. Sorry about that. I'm not the best with the Zoom, but I am with Virginia Poultry Growers, as Kari said earlier. I work in the sales department here, and my job is essentially to try to help people find turkey to eat. We at VPGC, we don't do your conventional Thanksgiving turkeys. You saw all of the birds that are being raised on Kari's farm, and they get pretty big. And I can speak from personal experience that trying to get one of those to fit in your oven can be pretty tough. But what we do, provide as options to our customers are things like turkey hot dogs, turkey burgers, deli meat for turkey sandwiches. We have a number of our customers that take our turkeys and turn them into pet food, turkey bacon for breakfasts. And we also have some customers that'll make the drumsticks that you would see in a amusement park like Busch Gardens or Disney World. We actually have one customer that has a contract with Disney World to provide their drumsticks. So our meat, comes from all of these different farms across Virginia, and VPGC is what's known as a true cooperative, which means that the actual farmers, people like Kari's family, her husband's dad and uncle, they're the ones that they own the co-op, and technically they're my boss, and all of us here, we do our best to try to make sure that they have people that want to buy their turkeys and eat them. You can't go into a grocery store and find VPGC, Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative, branded turkey on the shelf, but we work with a lot of brands that you would see in every grocery store, and pretty much any Food Lion or Walmart or Kroger that you go into, you'll be able to find one of our customers and be able to get our product. And my biggest encouragement would be to try turkey in different ways that maybe you hadn't thought of before, whether it's, everyone loves some good pork bacon, myself included. But sometimes it's good to try something new, and the way that turkey products can be used in things like tacos, stir fry, Those are great recipes. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, it's a great meat that can be used in many ways. And so really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come and just kind of give you a brief look at what we're doing and how we're trying to get turkey out across the country, and happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
All right, thank you. So we'll move into questions now. Mary Beth, did you want to manage that piece?
Sure. Let me jump on here. I think we had a few questions that came across that our presenters have already answered in the Q&A. So Tim Wood had asked a question earlier, and those answers can be found there from our two different presenters. But we did have a question, and this was during the cooking session, so I believe directed to Darla potentially, but it was a question about removing the breast meat immediately and why you would do that.
I think that's probably a question for Cynthia.
Oh, it might have been. It came through afterwards. So if you want to let us know, Cynthia, why, I guess, in that production part, you would remove the breast meat immediately.
Yes, I can do that. In my house, we remove it immediately. Well, I wouldn't say immediately. It's probably within a half an hour or so after it's being killed, because it's typically you want to field dress and clean your animal that you're hunting within a short period of time. So ours typically is within 30 minutes to definitely less than an hour from when it is killed to when it's brought to us to clean it out. And like I said, in this video, we only remove the breast meat, so we try to get it out as fast as we can. That way you're going to be able to tell if when it's harvested in the field, if it's shot, you're going to avoid getting any residue blood that's from where the kill shot is all over the meat and contaminating it. We also want to make sure in my house that there's no little buckshots throughout the meat. Those kind of, if they're there, it makes popcorn chicken a little tough, if you bite on one of those. So we remove it pretty fast, just so we can keep it clean and we can get it into our house, get it cleaned up, and get it taken care of and put into our refrigerator or our freezer, because we don't want the meat to spoil.
Great, thank you for that answer, Cynthia. If
You're welcome.
anyone else had questions for our presenters today, either on the production side or on the cooking side of things, if you want to leave those in the Q&A now. We have just a little bit of time left today, so if there is anything out there that you would like to know about, let us know.
While we're waiting for some more Q&As to potentially come through, I'd like to thank you for attending. When you're leaving the webinar, you'll have an option to take a short survey about this program. We appreciate you taking the time to complete the survey and giving us any feedback that you may have.
We did have another question come through, and I think this would be more directed to Carrie from our production turkey side of things, but what would be the total age before butchering a production turkey?
That's a great question. On our farm, from start to finish, a production turkey in our line of production, they're about 18 to 20 weeks. I think our last flock of turkeys went out at 19 weeks. And Zachary, you can correct me. I'm sure there are other ages for other types of production areas, but maybe not necessarily for our co-op. So Zach, you have anything to add to that?
That's exactly right. Our birds coming here to the plant are all all between 18 to 20 weeks. But then you have other companies that are raising birds, maybe for a whole Thanksgiving turkey, that would like to get a little bit smaller of a bird or so. And so they might be, closer to 14, 15 weeks. It just varies depending on the size of the bird that you're looking for. But for the most part, everything that we are doing is right at around 18, 19 weeks.
Great. That was two awesome perspectives on that question. So we appreciate that. I hope that answered your question. And we had another one that came through that said if someone wanted to begin producing turkeys, what would they need to do to get started?
Sure, I'll tackle that one first. Call Farm Credit. No, I'm just kidding. Well, kidding, not kidding. But an investment in a turkey operation is quite financially extensive. You will have to look into the right location. You're going to need access to really good water. You're also going to want to be within an area where your co-op is accepting new operators. Only a couple of those types of contracts are open, just depending on the year. And so you will definitely want to try and find a poultry producing co-op or business that will actually either provide you with a contract to be able to do that, and then set up all of the wonderful parts of getting the business going. So yeah, Zach, do you have any more to add to that?
Not much else. I think there is. I think that's a good starting point. The biggest thing is just to kind of see in your area, what companies are available and accepting of new growers, and get in touch with those. Here in Virginia, obviously we have a big role here. Cargill also has a big turkey production role in the area, and so just kind of look around for the big turkey producers in kind of your neck of the woods, and get in touch with them, and they usually have a live production team that can help walk you through the steps to getting into the business.
And while you all were talking about getting started, there was another question about what are the best types of turkeys to be used in production besides those broad breasted white turkeys.
Well, I'll speak to our farm in particular. I know what other types of turkeys are used in production besides those. The poultry commercial production turkeys are specifically bred for meat. So on the contrast of what Cynthia showed us with wild turkeys, obviously there's a size difference, but in the production scale, there are millions of people out there that need to eat, and we need to be as efficient in producing our food sources as possible. And with all these new technologies, as well as being able to breed for selective traits in our birds, we are choosing birds that have good health qualities, including good legs, and then as well as their meat qualities as to how they hold up until they become mature, and then they can be produced. Zach, if I'm missing anything, you can definitely tackle that question as well in the realm of other growers and other types of birds.
So I would say a good majority of the turkey production that goes on in the United States and really across the world, United States and Europe, is your white turkeys. Those birds are bred specifically for meat production, as Kari said, and you will find farms, dotted here and there around the United States that will grow what are known as your more heritage breeds, so a broad-breasted bronze, or turkeys that have the darker feathers, and those are typically done as kind of like a specialty Thanksgiving type item. If you want to try a different breed of turkey, with your family on Thanksgiving. The reason that the white turkey works really well is most people like to eat the turkey breast. That's what goes into your lunch meat, and a lot of different items. And so they grow a nice breast. I think that in the video about cleaning the wild turkey, it said that bird was about 23, 25 pounds or so. The white turkeys get up to be between 40 and 50 pounds. And so you get a nice big piece of meat off of them. And that goes a long way to help feeding, you know, the many people we have here in the country. And so, you know, while you will see a specialty colored turkey every now and again, you know, being sold by a production company, much of what you're going to see in the store is coming from that white bird.
Well, I think that looks like all of our questions today. Unless anybody has any other lingering thoughts out there before we wrap up. We just had a big thank you for the information and presentation today. So I wanted to pass that on to our presenters as well.
Yes, thank you all for attending, and thanks everyone for everyone that presented on today's presentation. I will follow up with a recording of this presentation in case you want to go back to anything. And I hope you all have a good weekend.
Thank you all.